It was a sunny afternoon in mid-June when my world turned upside down. I had just come home early from work, hoping to surprise Emily with a dinner reservation at our favorite restaurant. As I walked into our cozy suburban house, the sounds of laughter and hushed voices from upstairs caught my attention. Initially thinking it might be Emily chatting with a friend, I ascended the staircase quietly, not wanting to spoil the surprise. The voices grew clearer as I approached our bedroom. I could distinctly hear Emily's soft laughter, mingled with a deeper, unfamiliar voice. A male voice. Dread settled in the pit of my stomach as I stood outside the slightly ajar door. I hesitated, my mind racing with possibilities that I didn't want to entertain. Yet curiosity and a gnawing suspicion drove me to push the door open just a fraction more. Peering through the crack, my worst fears were confirmed. There she was, Emily, my wife of 5 years, sitting intimately close with a man I had never seen before. He was tall, with a neatly trimmed beard and piercing blue eyes. They were engrossed in conversation, their hands occasionally touching, exchanging glances that spoke volumes of a familiarity that cut through me like a knife. I felt a surge of conflicting emotions, anger, disbelief, and a profound sadness that threatened to overwhelm me. I wanted to storm in, confront them both right then and there, but something held me back. Perhaps it was the shock, or maybe a desperate need to process what I was seeing before I acted irrationally. Quietly withdrawing, I retreated downstairs, my mind racing. How long had this been going on? How could Emily betray our marriage like this? Questions clamored for answers, but I knew I needed a clear head to handle this situation. I sank into the armchair in our living room, staring blankly at the wall, trying to make sense of the fragments of my shattered trust. Hours passed before Emily came downstairs, a surprised look on her face when she saw me sitting there. Her smile faltered as she registered the expression on my face, a mix of hurt and accusation that I couldn't hide. "Jason, what's wrong?" she asked tentatively, her voice laced with concern. I stood up slowly, my gaze meeting hers. "Who is he, Emily?" My voice was steady, betraying none of the turmoil inside me. She hesitated for a moment, her eyes flickering with guilt before she composed herself. "He's just a colleague from work, Jason. We were discussing a project," she replied, her tone overly casual, as if trying too hard to convince me. "Is that what you call it?" I retorted bitterly, unable to mask the sarcasm. "I saw the way you were with him, Emily. Don't lie to me." She paled slightly, realization dawning on her face that I knew more than she expected. "Jason, please, let me explain," she pleaded, reaching out to touch my arm, but I stepped back instinctively. "There's nothing to explain, Emily," I said, my voice tinged with a sadness that cut deep. "I saw enough." Tears welled up in her eyes as she took a step closer. "Jason, I'm so sorry. It's not what you think. I didn't mean for this to happen." "Save it," I interrupted, my tone firm. "I don't want to hear your excuses. You've betrayed me, Emily." The truth hung heavy in the air between us, suffocating any semblance of the life we had built together. Words were futile now. They couldn't undo the hurt, the betrayal. Without another word, I turned away, walking towards the door, leaving Emily standing there, her voice calling out to me in despair. As I drove aimlessly through the quiet streets, the weight of reality sank in. My marriage, once the cornerstone of my happiness, now lay in ruins. Anger surged within me, competing with the devastation and heartache. But amidst the turmoil, a quiet resolve began to form. A determination not to let this betrayal define me. By the time I returned home that evening, I had made a decision. I would not sit idly by and watch my life unravel. Emily and her accomplice would understand the consequences of their actions. It was time to plan my revenge, not out of spite, but out of a need for closure and justice. As I sat at my desk that night, the glow of the computer screen illuminating my determined expression, I began to strategize. This was not just about saving face. It was about reclaiming my dignity and ensuring that no one would ever again toy with my trust so callously. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready to fight. In the days that followed, I maintained a facade of normalcy while secretly gathering evidence of Emily's infidelity. It was a painstaking process, poring over phone records, tracking her movements, and discreetly observing her interactions with Chris, the man who had shattered my trust. Each day felt like a battle against the overwhelming emotions threatening to consume me. I oscillated between seething anger and profound sadness, struggling to come to terms with the reality of Emily's betrayal. Yet beneath the turmoil, a steely determination simmered, a resolve to not only confront Emily, but also to ensure that Chris faced the consequences of his actions. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across our neighborhood, I received a call from my lawyer. We discussed the legal implications of Emily's infidelity and my decision to file for divorce on grounds of adultery. The process would be arduous, but I was prepared to endure it, if only to sever ties with the woman who had shattered my trust. With each passing day, my interactions with Emily grew more distant. I could feel her guilt and unease whenever we were in the same room, yet she made no attempts to initiate a conversation about what had transpired. It was as if she hoped to sweep her indiscretions under the rug, pretending that our marriage had not been irreparably damaged. Meanwhile, my preparations for revenge against Chris were meticulously calculated. I knew where he worked, his routine, and even his favorite haunts around town. Armed with the incriminating photos I had taken that fateful evening, I strategized the most devastating way to expose him, not just to Emily, but to his colleagues and superiors. One Wednesday afternoon, opportunity presented itself. Chris had called in sick to work, but my surveillance indicated otherwise. I discreetly followed him to a cozy cafe on the outskirts of town, where he met with a group of co-workers for what appeared to be a leisurely lunch. Seizing the moment, I slipped inside unnoticed and found a secluded spot where I could observe without being seen. As the lunch progressed, laughter and casual conversation filled the air. Chris seemed relaxed, unaware of the storm brewing just outside his oblivious bubble. When the time was right, I approached their table calmly, but with purpose. Chris's expression morphed from casual contentment to a mixture of surprise and dread as he saw me standing there, holding the incriminating photos. "Chris," I said evenly, my voice carrying across the table, "I think you dropped something." His co-workers fell silent, eyes darting between us as they sensed the tension in the air. Chris's face paled noticeably as he glanced at the photos in my outstretched hand, a damning visual testament to his betrayal of both me and my marriage. "I believe these belong to you," I continued, each word measured and deliberate. "Or perhaps you'd care to explain to your colleagues why you've been spending so much extra time with my wife." Chris stammered, his attempts at an excuse faltering under the weight of the evidence before him. His co-workers exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of how to react to the unfolding drama. "Jason, please," Chris finally managed, his voice tinged with desperation. "This isn't what you think. It was a mistake. A mistake that cost me my marriage," I interjected, my tone icy. "You have no idea what you've done." The tense silence stretched on, broken only by the murmurs of nearby patrons and the distant hum of traffic outside. Chris looked around nervously, clearly at a loss for words. Without waiting for his response, I turned on my heel and walked away, leaving him to face the consequences of his actions in front of his co-workers. As I exited the cafe, a mix of emotions churned inside me, satisfaction at having exposed Chris's deceit, but also a lingering ache of betrayal that would not easily fade. The evening sky had darkened by the time I returned home, weary but strangely relieved. The first steps of my revenge had been executed flawlessly, yet the battle was far from over. Emily still awaited her own reckoning, and I was determined to ensure that she understood the full extent of the devastation her choices had wrought. Stepping into the quiet solitude of our home, I resolved to confront Emily once and for all. It was time to bring closure to this painful chapter of my life, no matter how agonizing the process might be. The air in the living room was heavy with tension as I stood facing Emily, her eyes filled with a mix of apprehension and guilt. We had barely spoken since the day I confronted Chris, and the weight of unspoken words hung between us like a suffocating cloud. "Jason, please," Emily began tentatively, her voice barely above a whisper. "Can't we talk about this?" I stared at her, struggling to contain the torrent of emotions raging inside me. "Talk about what, Emily? The fact that you've been seeing another man behind my back?" Tears welled up in her eyes as she took a hesitant step towards me. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," she pleaded, her voice cracking with emotion. "I never meant to hurt you." "Yet you did," I said flatly, my tone devoid of sympathy. "You betrayed me, Emily. You broke the trust that held our marriage together, She reached out as if to touch my arm, but I recoiled instinctively. "Jason, please try to understand," she implored, her voice trembling. "It was a mistake, a moment of weakness." "A mistake that lasted for weeks," I countered bitterly. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" Emily's shoulders sagged, her gaze falling to the floor. "I don't know what to say," she admitted softly. "I was wrong, Jason. I was selfish and foolish." The admission did little to quell the storm inside me. I wanted to scream, to lash out at her for betraying everything we had built together. But beneath the anger, a sense of resignation settled over me, a grim acceptance of the irreparable damage that had been done. "Did you love him?" The question escaped my lips before I could stop it, the words hanging heavily in the air between us. Emily looked up, her eyes meeting mine with a mixture of sorrow and regret. "No," she said firmly, shaking her head. "I thought I did. But it was never about love. It was, I don't even know anymore. I felt a flicker of something. A shred of sympathy, perhaps, or maybe just exhaustion." "Why, Emily?" I asked quietly, my voice betraying the ache in my heart. "Why did you do it?" She hesitated as if searching for the right words. "I was lonely," she confessed, her voice barely audible. "You were always so focused on work, on your career. I felt neglected." The words struck me like a blow to the chest. Guilt mingled with anger as I realized the role I had inadvertently played in driving a wedge between us. "So instead of talking to me, you turned to someone else?" I asked, my voice tinged with bitterness. Emily nodded slowly, tears now streaming down her cheeks unchecked. "I know I messed up, Jason. I know I hurt you in ways I can't take back. But please, believe me when I say I regret it." Regret. The word echoed in my mind, mingling with the shards of trust and shattered dreams that lay scattered at my feet. I wanted to hate her, to cast her out of my life without a second thought. But somewhere, buried beneath the rubble of our marriage, a flicker of compassion remained, a recognition of the human frailty that had led us to this precipice. "I can't do this anymore, Emily," I said finally, my voice hoarse with emotion. "I can't pretend that everything is okay, that we can just move past this." She nodded, her shoulders trembling with silent sobs. "I understand," she whispered brokenly. "I don't expect you to forgive me." Silence enveloped us then, heavy and oppressive. The truth had been laid bare, our wounds exposed to the harsh light of reality. There were no more words left to say, no gestures that could mend what had been irreparably broken. With a heavy heart, I turned away from Emily, unable to bear the weight of her sorrow any longer. The decision had been made, our marriage was over. Yet, as I walked out of our home, leaving behind the shattered remnants of a life once cherished, a sense of liberation began to dawn within me. The road ahead would be long and uncertain, fraught with the pain of loss and the struggle to rebuild. But as I drove away into the night, leaving behind the echoes of our shattered vows, I knew that I had finally begun the journey towards healing, a journey that would redefine my sense of self and reshape the contours of my future. For now, all that remained was to embrace the unknown, to learn from the wreckage of my past, and to forge ahead with a newfound strength born of adversity and the relentless pursuit of redemption. In the aftermath of confronting Emily and deciding to end our marriage, a peculiar mix of emotions swirled within me: relief, sorrow, and a lingering sense of betrayal that refused to dissipate easily. As the days passed, I immersed myself in the practicalities of untangling our lives, dividing assets, arranging temporary living arrangements, and navigating the complex emotional terrain of separating from someone who had been my partner for so long. Amidst the tumult, there was a strange sense of freedom. For the first time in years, I had the space to breathe, to recalibrate my priorities without the weight of Emily's infidelity bearing down on me. It was a bittersweet realization, one that underscored the painful truth that sometimes letting go is the only path to reclaiming oneself. One crisp autumn afternoon, amidst the amber hues of falling leaves, I found myself sitting across from my lawyer, reviewing the finalized divorce papers. The ink on the signatures was still fresh, a stark testament to the finality of our decision. It was done. Emily and I were no longer husband and wife. "You're making the right choice, Jason," my lawyer, Mr. Andrews, remarked quietly, his voice tinged with sympathy. "This isn't easy, but it's necessary." I nodded, my gaze fixed on the papers before me. "I know," I replied softly. "It's for the best." Mr. Andrews leaned forward, his expression serious. "Have you thought about what comes next?" he asked, his tone gentle yet probing. I hesitated, the weight of uncertainty pressing upon me. I'm not sure, I admitted, my voice betraying a hint of vulnerability. I need to figure things out. He nodded understandingly. Take your time, Jason. Healing doesn't happen overnight. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into work with renewed fervor, seeking solace in the familiar rhythms of my career. The distraction proved a temporary reprieve from the emotional turmoil that threatened to engulf me. Yet in the quiet moments, driving home alone in the evenings, or waking to an empty apartment, I confronted the harsh reality of rebuilding my life from the ground up. Friends and family offered their support, their well-meaning gestures a lifeline in the stormy seas of divorce. I appreciated their concern, their attempts to lift my spirits with invitations to dinners, outings, and the occasional weekend getaway. But amidst their kindness, I found myself retreating into solitude, grappling with the profound loneliness that accompanied the dissolution of my marriage. One evening, as I sat alone in my sparsely furnished apartment, a sense of restlessness stirred within me. The walls seemed to close in, suffocating in their emptiness. Without conscious thought, I found myself reaching for my phone, scrolling through old messages, memories of a time when love had filled the spaces now haunted by silence. And then, amidst the digital clutter, I stumbled upon a name that evoked memories of betrayal and heartache. Chris. Anger flared within me anew, a visceral reaction to the mere thought of him. The man who had wormed his way into Emily's affections, shattering our marriage with callous disregard. I resisted the urge to hurl my phone across the room, instead clenching my fists in futile frustration. But alongside the anger, a different thought surfaced, a thought that whispered of unfinished business, of justice left unfulfilled. Chris had faced public exposure, his indiscretions laid bare before his colleagues. But what of Emily? What of the woman who had initiated the chain of events that led to our marital collapse? A plan began to form, a quiet resolve to confront Emily one last time, not out of vengeance, but out of a need for closure. I needed answers, to understand why she had strayed, to grasp the depths of her betrayal. It was a dangerous path, fraught with emotional pitfalls, yet I knew I could not move forward without facing the past head-on. The following weekend I called Emily, a decision weighed with apprehension and a flicker of hope. To my surprise, she answered on the second ring, her voice tentative yet tinged with relief. "Jason," she said softly, the sound of my name hanging between us like a fragile thread. "I didn't expect to hear from you." "I need to see you," I replied evenly, my voice betraying none of the turmoil inside me. "There are things we need to talk about." There was a pause on the other end of the line, pregnant with unspoken words. "Okay," Emily finally said, her voice barely audible. "When?" We agreed to meet the following day at a quiet cafe on the outskirts of town, the same cafe where I had confronted Chris weeks earlier. As I hung up the phone, a mix of anticipation and dread settled over me. This meeting would mark the final chapter of our shared history, a reckoning that would either grant me the closure I sought or plunge me deeper into the abyss of unanswered questions. That night, sleep eluded me, my mind consumed with thoughts of Emily and the impending conversation. I tossed and turned in bed, grappling with a maelstrom of emotions, anger, sorrow, and a desperate longing for understanding. Morning dawned gray and overcast, mirroring the turbulence within me. With a heavy heart and resolute determination, I set out for the cafe, uncertain of what awaited me on the other side of the door. As I entered the familiar establishment, the scent of coffee and muted chatter enveloped me. Emily was already seated at a corner table, her eyes fixed on the cup before her, her hands trembling slightly. She looked up as I approached, a flicker of apprehension crossing her features. "Jason," she said softly, her voice wavering, "thank you for meeting me." I nodded, taking a seat opposite her. "We need to talk, Emily," I began, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "About everything." And so, with the weight of our shared history bearing down upon us, we began the painful process of unraveling the tangled threads of our past, a conversation that would determine the course of our futures, separate yet forever entwined by the scars of betrayal and the fragile hope of closure. The cafe hummed with the quiet murmur of conversations and the soft clink of cutlery against porcelain as Emily and I sat facing each other, a yawning chasm of unspoken words stretching between us. For a long moment silence reigned, a heavy, palpable presence that underscored the gravity of our meeting. "I don't know where to start," Emily finally said, her voice barely above a whisper, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "You could start by telling me why," I replied evenly, my gaze unwavering. "Why did you do it, Emily? Why did you betray our marriage?" She flinched at the word betray, as if each syllable cut deeper than she had anticipated. "I wish I had a simple answer," she began haltingly, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. "I was lost, Jason, lost in a sea of loneliness and frustration." I listened, my jaw clenched in a struggle to remain composed. Her words echoed faintly in the recesses of my mind, evoking memories of nights spent alone, of missed opportunities to bridge the growing divide between us. "You could have talked to me," I said quietly, my voice tinged with a bitterness I couldn't quite suppress. "We could have worked through it together." "I know," Emily replied softly, her gaze dropping to the tabletop. I should have been stronger, been honest with you." The admission hung in the air between us, a fragile admission of culpability that did little to assuage the ache in my heart. "What about Chris?" I asked, steeling myself against the resurgence of anger. "How did he fit into all of this?" Emily sighed heavily, her shoulders slumping under the weight of her confession. "Chris, he was just someone who listened," she admitted, her voice trembling with remorse. "Someone who made me feel seen, I guess. And that justified betraying our marriage?" The words slipped out before I could stop them, edged with accusation. "No," Emily replied firmly, her eyes meeting mine with a mixture of sorrow and regret. "Nothing justifies what I did. I hurt you, Jason, and I can't take that back." Her words resonated within me, stirring a wellspring of conflicting emotions, anger, sorrow, and a begrudging flicker of understanding. "Why did you agree to meet me today?" I asked quietly, my tone softer now, tinged with resignation. Emily hesitated, as if weighing her words carefully. "Because I wanted closure," she admitted finally, her voice barely audible. "I wanted to apologize, to try to make amends in some small way." The vulnerability in her voice tugged at something deep within me, a shard of empathy amidst the wreckage of our shared past. "Is there anything else you want to say?" I asked, my voice tinged with weary acceptance. She shook her head slowly, tears now streaming down her cheeks unchecked. "Just that I'm sorry, Jason," she whispered brokenly. "I'm so sorry for everything." Silence descended upon us once more, heavy and laden with unspoken truths. The cacophony of the cafe seemed to fade into the background, leaving only the echo of our shared pain reverberating in the stillness. "I forgive you, Emily," I said quietly, surprising even myself with the words. "Not because it's easy, but because I need to let go." Her eyes widened in disbelief, hope flickering briefly in their depths before reality tempered her expression. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice choked with emotion. As we sat in that quiet corner of the cafe, two souls grappling with the aftermath of shattered trust and fractured love, a sense of closure settled over me, a tentative peace born of acceptance and the gradual release of resentment. When we finally parted ways, it was with a shared understanding, a silent acknowledgement that while our paths diverged irrevocably that day, we carried with us the indelible imprint of each other's presence, forever altered by the tumultuous journey we had traversed together. Driving home through the fading light of evening, a weight lifted from my shoulders, a burden of anger and betrayal, replaced by a profound sense of liberation. The road ahead remained uncertain, its twists and turns obscured by the veil of uncertainty, yet I no longer feared the unknown. For in that quiet cafe, amidst the wreckage of a failed marriage and the shards of broken trust, I had found something unexpected, a measure of peace, and the first tentative steps towards reclaiming my own sense of self. Weeks turned into months as I navigated the uncharted waters of post-divorce life. The initial turbulence of emotions gradually subsided, replaced by a fragile sense of equilibrium. Work became my anchor, providing structure and purpose amidst the upheaval of personal upheaval. In the quiet moments, however, echoes of the past still reverberated. Thoughts of Emily and our failed marriage lingered like ghosts in the corners of my mind, reminders of a love that had once burned bright before flickering out in the cold winds of betrayal. Friends and family offered their support, their presence a source of solace in moments of doubt and loneliness. I immersed myself in their company, grateful for the distraction they provided from the ache of unresolved feelings. Yet, beneath the facade of resilience, a part of me yearned for closure, a final reckoning with the remnants of a relationship left in ruins. It was during one such evening, amidst the chatter of friends gathered for a casual dinner, that a familiar face unexpectedly appeared. Chris. His presence sent a jolt through me, a reminder of the wounds still raw from his betrayal. Our eyes met briefly across the room, a fleeting exchange fraught with unspoken tension. He approached cautiously, as if uncertain of his welcome amidst the company of those who knew of his role in my marital breakdown. "Jason," he greeted me tentatively, his voice tinged with a mix of regret and apprehension. "I didn't expect to see you here." I nodded curtly, acknowledging his presence without warmth. "What do you want, Chris?" I asked, my tone clipped. He hesitated, as if weighing his words carefully. I wanted to apologize," he began haltingly, his eyes avoiding mine. "For what happened between Emily and me. It was wrong, and I regret it deeply." The sincerity in his voice struck me, unexpected in its earnestness. Anger surged within me, battling against a flicker of curiosity. "Do you?" I retorted, unable to suppress the bitterness that laced my words. "Regret it, I mean." Chris sighed heavily, his shoulders slumping under the weight of my accusation. "Yes," he admitted quietly, "I do. I never meant to hurt you, Jason. I hope you can believe that." Belief. The word hung between us, a fragile thread upon which our conversation teetered. I studied Chris intently, searching for traces of deception amidst the weariness etched into his features. He seemed different now, humbled perhaps by the consequences of his actions. "You changed everything," I said finally, my voice low but unwavering. "For me, for Emily. You tore apart something that I thought was solid." Chris nodded slowly, his gaze meeting mine with a solemnity that bespoke genuine remorse. "I know," he replied softly, "and I can't undo that. But I want you to know that I've been trying to make amends, to learn from my mistakes." His words struck a chord within me, a reluctant acknowledgement of human fallibility and the capacity for redemption. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, my voice tinged with guarded curiosity. Chris took a deep breath, steeling himself against the weight of my scrutiny. "Because I want you to know that I'm not the same person I was then," he said earnestly. "And because I hope that someday you can find it in yourself to forgive me." Forgiveness. The word echoed in the recesses of my mind, stirring a tumult of conflicting emotions, anger, resentment, and a begrudging acceptance of the passage of time. "I don't know if I can," I admitted quietly, my voice raw with vulnerability. Chris nodded understandingly, his expression tinged with sorrow. "I understand," he murmured, "but I wanted to try." Silence descended upon us once more, the weight of our shared history palpable in the charged atmosphere. Around us the dinner continued unabated, oblivious to the quiet exchange unfolding in its midst. "I appreciate your honesty, Chris," I said finally, breaking the silence that stretched between us like a taut wire. "And while I don't know what the future holds, I can at least acknowledge your attempt to make things right." He nodded gratefully, a flicker of relief crossing his features. "Thank you, Jason," he replied quietly, "for giving me a chance." As Chris excused himself and melted back into the gathering crowd, I watched him go with a mixture of ambivalence and reluctant admiration. His presence had reopened old wounds, dredging up memories of pain and betrayal. Yet amidst the tumult of emotions, a tentative sense of closure began to take root, a recognition that forgiveness, like healing, was a process fraught with uncertainty and the gradual acceptance of imperfections. Driving home later that night, alone with my thoughts and the quiet hum of the radio, I reflected on the unexpected encounter with Chris. The wounds of the past were far from healed, but perhaps in acknowledging his remorse and my own capacity for empathy, I had taken a small step towards reclaiming a sense of peace amidst the wreckage of a shattered marriage. For now, as I navigated the solitary road ahead, I clung to the fragile hope that with time, the scars of betrayal would fade, leaving behind a newfound strength forged in the crucible of forgiveness and the relentless pursuit of personal redemption. Emily's voice crackled over the phone line, laden with an undercurrent of uncertainty. Her tentative inquiries about my well-being echoed in the quiet space between us, stirring memories of a time when such conversations flowed effortlessly, when our connection was a lifeline rather than a reminder of fractured bonds. "I'm glad to hear you're trying," I responded finally, my voice measured. "It hasn't been easy for either of us." There was a moment of silence, pregnant with unspoken words and lingering regrets. "No, it hasn't," Emily agreed softly, her tone tinged with remorse. "Why did you call, Emily?" I asked, unable to suppress the curiosity that gnawed at me. "Is there something specific you wanted to discuss?" She hesitated, the weight of her hesitation palpable even through the phone. I wanted to apologize," she began tentatively, her voice faltering, "for everything. For hurting you, for betraying our marriage." The admission hung in the air between us, heavy with the weight of unresolved emotions. "It's not easy to hear," I admitted, my voice tinged with a mix of resignation and lingering pain. "But I appreciate your honesty." Emily exhaled audibly, as if releasing a breath she had been holding for too long. "I know I can't undo what happened," she continued, her words measured. "But I want you to know that I've been seeking help, trying to understand why I did what I did." Her confession stirred a mix of emotions within me, compassion tempered by the enduring ache of betrayal. "I'm glad you're taking steps," I replied quietly. "It's a start." There was a brief pause before Emily spoke again, her voice tentative. "Jason, I've been thinking a lot about us," she admitted hesitantly. "About the good times we had, the life we built together." I listened, the memories she invoked flickering to life like distant stars in the night sky, faint but enduring. "It's hard not to think about," I replied honestly, my voice softening. "But we made our choices, Emily. We have to live with them." Her silence spoke volumes, a wordless acknowledgement of the irreversible nature of our decisions. "I know," she murmured finally. "I just needed to say these things, to try to make amends in some way." The vulnerability in her voice struck a chord within me, a reminder of the complex tapestry of emotions that bound us together, even in the aftermath of shattered trust. "Thank you for calling, Emily," I said sincerely, a sense of closure settling over me like a quiet benediction. "I appreciate you reaching out." As we said our goodbyes and hung up, I found myself enveloped in a sense of peace, an unexpected respite from the turbulent seas of uncertainty that had defined our separation. The conversation had stirred dormant emotions, reigniting flickers of empathy and understanding amidst the jagged edges of unresolved pain. In the days that followed, I reflected on Emily's call, a tentative bridge spanning the chasm of our shared history. It was a gesture fraught with vulnerability and fraught with uncertainty, yet it offered a glimpse of reconciliation, a faint glimmer of healing amidst the fractured remnants of our past. Life continued its inexorable march forward, weaving new experiences into the fabric of my existence. I embraced the solitude of my own company, finding solace in moments of quiet introspection and the steady rhythm of daily routines. With each passing day, the wounds of betrayal healed imperceptibly, leaving behind scars that bore testament to resilience and the quiet strength forged in the crucible of adversity. And as I navigated the uncertain terrain of a future shaped by choices both made and unmade, I carried with me the enduring lessons of forgiveness, empathy, and the enduring capacity of the human spirit to endure and emerge stronger, even from the ashes of shattered dreams. The passage of time brought with it a subtle shift, a gradual easing of the ache that had once defined my days. Life settled into a new rhythm, one where the specter of betrayal no longer loomed so large, where the wounds of the past began to knit together, leaving behind scars etched with lessons learned. Work remained a steadfast anchor amidst the ebb and flow of emotions, providing structure and purpose that helped to fill the void left by Emily's absence. Colleagues noticed my renewed vigor, commenting on my focused dedication and the clarity of my decisions. Behind the veneer of professional competence, however, lay a quieter transformation, a growing acceptance of the intricacies of forgiveness and the complexities of human frailty. In the midst of this newfound equilibrium, unexpected moments of reflection would surface, moments colored by memories of shared laughter, whispered promises, and the poignant ache of loss. Yet, with each passing day, these recollections became less a source of pain and more a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. One crisp autumn afternoon, as I strolled through the city park bathed in the golden hues of falling leaves, a familiar voice called out my name. Startled, I turned to see Emily standing a short distance away, her expression tentative yet hopeful. "Jason," she greeted softly, her voice carrying across the quietude of the park. "I'm glad I found you." I studied her for a moment, noting the subtle changes, the weariness etched into her features, the vulnerability in her gaze. "Emily," I replied evenly, my voice a mirror of the calm I had cultivated over time. "What brings you here?" She approached cautiously, a small smile flickering at the corners of her lips. "I wanted to see how you were doing," she admitted, her eyes searching mine for any hint of resentment. "I'm doing well," I replied honestly, a flicker of surprise coloring my words. "Life has its challenges, but I'm managing." Her smile widened slightly, tinged with relief. "I'm glad to hear that," she murmured softly. "I've been thinking a lot lately." I waited, allowing the silence between us to stretch, a fragile thread upon which our tentative conversation hung. "About us," Emily continued hesitantly, her voice barely above a whisper. "About everything we went through." I nodded slowly, a swirl of emotion stirring within me, residual hurt tempered by a growing sense of understanding. "It wasn't easy," I acknowledged quietly, my gaze fixed on a distant point beyond the park's tranquil facade. "But we've both come a long way." Emily's expression softened, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I want you to know that I'm sorry, Jason," she said earnestly, her voice quavering with emotion, "for everything I put you through." Her words resonated within me, stirring a wellspring of conflicting emotions, forgiveness, empathy, and a tentative hope for closure. "Thank you, Emily," I replied sincerely, a weight lifting from my shoulders with each word. "I appreciate you saying that." We stood in companionable silence, the rustle of leaves and the distant chatter of parkgoers filling the space between us. In that moment, the wounds of the past seemed to fade into insignificance, replaced by a shared acknowledgement of our flawed humanity and the enduring bonds that had once united us. "I don't expect forgiveness," Emily began softly, her gaze steady upon mine, "but I hope that someday we can find a way to move forward." Her vulnerability touched something deep within me, a recognition of our shared history and the possibility of healing wounds long thought irreparable. "Maybe we can," I replied gently, my voice a whisper carried on the breeze, "in our own time." As Emily nodded in quiet acceptance, a sense of closure settled over me, a quiet acceptance of the past and a hesitant embrace of the future. Life, with its twists and turns, had brought us to this juncture, a place where forgiveness and understanding intertwined with the enduring hope for second chances. Walking away from the park that afternoon, I carried with me a renewed sense of peace, a testament to the transformative power of forgiveness and the indomitable spirit that refuses to be defined by past hurts. And as the autumn sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the cityscape, I allowed myself to believe in the possibility of redemption and the quiet beauty of a heart willing to forgive. The days grew shorter as winter settled over the city, wrapping everything in a blanket of cold and quiet. Amidst the muted hues of the season, I found myself reflecting often on the unexpected encounter with Emily in the park. Her presence lingered in my thoughts, a reminder of the fragile truce we had forged amidst the remnants of a fractured past. Work continued to be a steady anchor, its demands providing structure and purpose that helped to fill the void left by Emily's absence. Colleagues remarked on my renewed focus, unaware of the internal journey that had brought me to this place of quiet acceptance and reluctant forgiveness. In the solitude of my apartment, I found solace in routines. Early morning runs along deserted streets, evenings spent lost in the pages of books that offered temporary refuge from the complexities of human relationships. Yet beneath the veneer of tranquility, a restlessness stirred, a persistent yearning for closure, for a final reckoning with the tangled threads of our shared history. One evening, as I sat by the glow of the fireplace, the soft chime of the doorbell shattered the silence. Startled from my reverie, I crossed the room with cautious steps, heart pounding with a mixture of apprehension and curiosity. Through the frosted glass, I glimpsed a familiar silhouette, a figure cloaked in the swirling snowflakes of an unforgiving winter night. Opening the door revealed Emily standing before me, her face illuminated by a hesitant smile that faltered at the edges. "Jason," she greeted softly, her voice a fragile echo in the stillness. "I hope I'm not intruding." I studied her for a moment, noting the tension in her posture, the vulnerability in her eyes. "Emily," I replied evenly, my voice betraying none of the turmoil within. "What brings you here?" Her gaze faltered momentarily before steadying, a silent plea for understanding. I couldn't stop thinking about our conversation," she began haltingly, her breath forming wisps of fog in the frigid air. "About what we said and what we didn't say." I waited, allowing the weight of her words to settle between us, a tangible reminder of the unresolved emotions that had tethered us to each other even in separation. "I've been trying to make sense of everything," Emily continued, her voice barely above a whisper, "of the choices I made and the pain I caused." Her admission stirred a mix of emotions within me, compassion tempered by lingering hurt, forgiveness entwined with the stubborn ache of betrayal. "It's not easy," I acknowledged quietly, my gaze fixed on a point beyond the frost-framed doorway. "For either of us." Emily nodded slowly, her expression earnest and vulnerable. "I know," she murmured softly, "and I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to see you, to try to make amends in some way." The sincerity in her voice tugged at something deep within me, a recognition of our shared humanity and the flawed tapestry of our intertwined lives. "Thank you for coming," I said finally, a weight lifting from my shoulders with each word. "For being honest." She smiled faintly, gratitude and relief mingling in the flicker of her eyes. "I've been seeing a therapist," Emily confessed quietly, her voice tinged with vulnerability. "Trying to understand my own actions, to learn how to forgive myself." Her words resonated within me, stirring a wellspring of empathy amidst the echoes of unresolved pain. "That's important," I replied gently, a tentative bridge spanning the divide between us. "For your own healing." Silence descended upon us once more, the quietude broken only by the muted crackle of the fireplace and the hushed whispers of winter wind outside. Around us, the city slept beneath a blanket of snow, a pristine canvas upon which our tentative reconciliation unfolded. "I don't know where we go from here," Emily admitted softly, her voice threaded with uncertainty. "But I hope that we can find a way to move forward, even if it's apart." Her words hung in the air between us, laden with unspoken possibilities and the fragile hope for a future untethered by the shadows of our past. "Maybe we can," I replied quietly, a sense of peace settling over me like a gentle snowfall. "In time." As Emily nodded in quiet acceptance, a bond forged in the crucible of forgiveness and the relentless pursuit of personal redemption settled between us, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of love, even in its most imperfect form. Closing the door against the winter chill, I watched Emily disappear into the swirling snowflakes, a solitary figure navigating the uncertain terrain of her own journey. And as I returned to the warmth of the fire-lit room, a flicker of hope kindled within me, a belief in the transformative power of second chances and the quiet beauty of hearts willing to forgive, to heal, and to embrace the possibility of a future rewritten by the quiet triumph of forgiveness. Days turned into weeks, and the tentative peace forged between Emily and me held steady amidst the ebb and flow of daily life. Winter slowly gave way to the gentle thaw of early spring, painting the city in hues of green and gold as nature stirred from its slumber. Emily and I navigated our newfound understanding with cautious steps, each encounter a delicate dance of old wounds and hesitant hopes. We met occasionally for coffee, conversations weaving through the tapestry of shared memories, and the tentative exploration of futures diverged. One sunny afternoon, as cherry blossoms bloomed in a riot of pink along the city streets, Emily invited me to join her for a walk in the park, a place where we had once walked hand in hand, where promises were made beneath the dappled shade of ancient oaks. "I'm glad you could make it," Emily greeted warmly as I approached, her smile a mirror of the spring sun above us. "I wouldn't miss it," I replied sincerely, a flicker of gratitude warming my words. We strolled along the familiar path, the crunch of gravel beneath our feet, a comforting cadence against the backdrop of rustling leaves and birdsong. Conversation flowed easily between us, threading through the fabric of our shared history with a newfound ease. I've been thinking a lot about forgiveness, Emily began tentatively, her voice carrying the weight of introspection, about what it means to truly forgive oneself and others. Her words resonated deeply within me, stirring echoes of our past struggles and the hard-earned lessons of acceptance and grace. It's not easy, I admitted quietly, my gaze drawn to a pair of robins flitting through the branches overhead. But it's necessary. Emily nodded thoughtfully, her eyes fixed on the horizon where the sun dipped towards the edge of the sky. I've come to realize that forgiveness isn't just about letting go of anger or resentment, she continued, her tone tinged with conviction. It's about embracing the imperfections of our shared humanity, about finding compassion in the face of our own frailties. Her vulnerability touched something deep within me, a reminder of the transformative power of empathy and the enduring resilience of the human spirit. You've come a long way, I said softly, admiration coloring my words. Emily smiled gratefully, her gaze meeting mine with a quiet understanding. So have you, she replied sincerely, a shared acknowledgement of our individual journeys towards healing and reconciliation. As we reached a tranquil clearing bathed in the soft glow of afternoon light, Emily paused, turning to face me with a mixture of courage and uncertainty. Jason, she began softly, her words tentative yet filled with unspoken longing. I know we've both been through so much, and I don't want to rush anything, but I can't help wondering if there's still a place for us. Her vulnerability laid bare the depths of her heart, a testament to the enduring bond that had weathered the storms of betrayal and regret. I considered her words carefully, feeling the weight of our shared history and the tentative hope for a future rewritten by the quiet triumph of forgiveness. I've wondered the same, I admitted quietly, my voice a whispered echo in the tranquil stillness of the park. There's no denying what we've been through, Emily, but perhaps there's room for us to explore what comes next. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, a fragile hope kindling within their depths. I would like that, she replied earnestly, her voice barely above a whisper. In that moment, beneath the blossoming canopy of springtime renewal, we forged a silent pact, a commitment to navigate the uncertainties of the future together, to embrace the complexities of forgiveness and the quiet beauty of hearts willing to heal and rebuild. As we walked back towards the city, the scent of cherry blossoms mingling with the promise of new beginnings, I felt a sense of peace settle over me, a recognition that while scars may linger, they need not define the path forward. And as Emily reached for my hand, fingers intertwining with a tentative warmth, I allowed myself to believe in the possibility of second chances and the enduring power of love, steadfast and resilient even amidst the wreckage of shattered dreams. Spring unfolded its vibrant tapestry across the city, painting parks and streets with blossoms in shades of pink and white. In the wake of our tentative agreement to explore what lay ahead, Emily and I embarked on a journey of rediscovery, a delicate dance of rebuilding trust and embracing the possibility of a future entwined. Our meetings became more frequent, each one a step towards unraveling the tangled threads of our past. We shared meals, exchanged stories, and revisited familiar places imbued with memories both bitter and sweet. Through it all, a sense of cautious optimism blossomed between us, nurtured by shared laughter, honest conversations, and the quiet understanding born of shared trials. One evening, as we sat on the terrace of a cozy cafe nestled in the heart of the city, Emily reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine in a gesture both tentative and reassuring. Jason, she began softly, her gaze steady upon mine. I've been thinking a lot about what we talked about in the park. I met her gaze, a flicker of anticipation stirring within me. So have I admitted quietly, the weight of our shared history palpable in the space between us. She took a deep breath, her words measured yet filled with earnestness. I want you to know how deeply sorry I am for everything, Emily continued, her voice tinged with vulnerability. For the pain I caused you, for the choices I made. Her sincerity touched something within me, a chord of empathy and forgiveness that resonated despite the lingering scars. I believe you, I replied sincerely, a sense of peace settling over me like a comforting embrace. And I've come to understand that forgiveness isn't about forgetting or condoning what happened. It's about freeing ourselves from the burden of resentment and opening our hearts to healing. Emily nodded, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. I'm grateful for your forgiveness, she murmured softly, her voice filled with gratitude and humility. As we sat in companionable silence, the city buzzed around us with the rhythm of life, people hurrying past, the distant hum of traffic, and the gentle clink of glasses from neighboring tables. Amidst the bustle, a quiet understanding unfolded between us, a mutual commitment to honor the past while embracing the uncertain promise of the future. "I want to move forward with you, Jason," Emily said finally, her voice steady with resolve. "To build something new, something stronger than before." Her words echoed the unspoken desires of my heart, a longing for renewal and redemption, a belief in the transformative power of love, tempered by forgiveness. "I want that too, Emily," I replied earnestly, a smile blooming on my lips. "To embrace the possibilities ahead of us, whatever they may be." In that moment, beneath the soft glow of streetlights and the canopy of stars overhead, we made a silent pact, a commitment to navigate the complexities of rebuilding trust and nurturing a love that had weathered the storms of doubt and despair. Hand in hand, we ventured into the uncertain future, guided by the gentle rhythm of spring and the steadfast belief that second chances were not merely a fleeting hope, but a resilient testament to the resilience of the human spirit. As we left the cafe that evening, the warmth of Emily's hand in mine echoed the warmth blossoming within my heart, a quiet reassurance that, despite the trials and tribulations of our past, our journey together was just beginning, filled with the promise of new beginnings and the steadfast hope that love, in its purest form, could transcend even the deepest wounds of the past. As spring blossomed into the fullness of summer, Emily and I ventured deeper into the uncharted territory of our renewed relationship. Each day brought with it a blend of anticipation and trepidation, a delicate balance of rediscovery and forging new memories together. We spent weekends exploring the outskirts of the city, hiking through sun-dappled forests and picnicking by tranquil lakes. In those moments of solitude amidst nature's embrace, conversations flowed effortlessly, trading childhood anecdotes, sharing dreams for the future, and weaving aspirations into the tapestry of our shared journey. One bright Saturday morning, we set out on a spontaneous road trip to a quaint coastal town just a few hours' drive away. The salty tang of sea air greeted us as we arrived, the coastline stretching out before us in an expanse of azure waters and sun-kissed sands. Hand in hand, we strolled along the boardwalk, the rhythmic crash of waves providing a soothing backdrop to our meandering conversation. "I never imagined we'd find ourselves here," Emily remarked with a soft laugh, her eyes sparkling with a mixture of wonder and contentment. I smiled, the warmth of her hand in mine a comforting reassurance of how far we had come. "Life has a way of surprising us," I replied, a sense of gratitude filling my heart for the unexpected twists and turns that had led us to this moment. We wandered through narrow cobblestone streets lined with quaint shops and bustling cafes, pausing to savor local delicacies and immerse ourselves in the vibrant tapestry of coastal life. In the midst of laughter and shared anecdotes, the barriers erected by past hurts seemed to dissolve, replaced by a renewed sense of connection and shared purpose. As the sun dipped towards the horizon, casting a golden glow over the tranquil harbor, we found ourselves perched on a weathered bench overlooking the water. The gentle lapping of waves against the pier provided a soothing rhythm to our quiet contemplation. "I've been thinking about what comes next for us," Emily began softly, her voice carrying the weight of unspoken hopes and fears. "About where we go from here." I turned to face her, the fading light illuminating the earnestness in her gaze. "So have I admitted quietly, the uncertainty of the future tempered by a growing sense of conviction. "And I've come to realize that what matters most is the journey we choose to take together." Her eyes softened with understanding, a shared recognition of the fragility and beauty of second chances. "I want to build a future with you, Jason," Emily said earnestly, her voice tinged with vulnerability, yet filled with determination. "To create something meaningful and lasting." I reached for her hand, fingers intertwining in a silent promise of commitment and devotion. "I want that too," I replied sincerely, a surge of emotion welling within me at the prospect of a future defined by love, forgiveness, and shared dreams. As we sat in quiet companionship, the evening enveloped us in its embrace, a testament to the resilience of the human heart and the transformative power of forgiveness. In that fleeting moment, beneath the starlit canopy of a summer night, We found solace in the knowledge that our journey, though marked by hardship and pain, had led us to a place where hope blossomed anew, a place where love, in its purest form, illuminated the path forward with the promise of endless possibilities. As summer unfolded its warmth over the city, Emily and I found ourselves immersed in a rhythm of togetherness that felt both familiar and new. Our days became a blend of shared adventures and quiet moments of intimacy, each one deepening our bond and affirming the fragile beauty of our second chance. One lazy Sunday afternoon, we decided to explore a local art festival that had sprung up in the heart of the downtown district. The air buzzed with creativity, the scent of food trucks mingling with the vibrant colors of paintings and sculptures lining the streets. Hand in hand, we meandered through the labyrinth of stalls and exhibits, pausing to admire works of art that spoke to our souls. "I've always loved art," Emily remarked wistfully as we lingered before a series of abstract paintings. "It has a way of capturing emotions and experiences that words often struggle to convey." I nodded in agreement, studying her profile as she traced the contours of a canvas with delicate fingers. "It's like a window into the artist's soul," I mused softly, the bustling crowd fading into the background as we shared a moment of quiet reflection. We wandered through rows of sculptures, each one a testament to the limitless creativity of the human spirit. Emily's eyes lit up with curiosity as she examined a particularly intricate piece, a mosaic of glass and metal that shimmered in the afternoon sun. "Do you ever wonder about the stories behind these works?" she asked, her voice tinged with wonder as she leaned closer to inspect the fine details. "All the time," I admitted, a smile tugging at the corners of my lips. Each piece carries a piece of the artist's journey, their struggles and triumphs woven into the fabric of their creation. As we continued our exploration, we stumbled upon a small gallery tucked away from the main thoroughfare, a sanctuary of tranquility amidst the festival's bustling energy. Intrigued, we stepped inside, greeted by the soft hum of conversation and the gentle glow of track lighting illuminating the walls adorned with paintings. One canvas in particular caught Emily's eye, a portrait of a solitary figure standing beneath a moonlit sky, their face turned towards the heavens with an expression of quiet contemplation. "There's something hauntingly beautiful about this," she murmured, her gaze lingering on the painting's ethereal quality. I joined her, captivated by the artist's ability to capture the essence of solitude and yearning with a masterful stroke of the brush. "It's like the artist captured a moment of longing," I observed softly, my thoughts drifting to our own journey of rediscovery and reconciliation. Emily nodded, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Sometimes I feel like we're standing at the edge of something vast and unknown," she confessed quietly, her voice a whisper amidst the gallery's hushed ambiance. I turned to her, my heart swelling with tenderness and understanding. "It's okay to feel that way," I reassured her gently, a surge of gratitude welling within me for the depth of our connection and the resilience of our love. As we stood together in the quiet embrace of art and shared understanding, I realized that our journey, though marked by scars and shadows, was a testament to the enduring power of forgiveness and the transformative grace of second chances. Hand in hand, we navigated the gallery of life, each painting and sculpture a mirror reflecting the beauty of our shared evolution and the promise of a future shaped by love, trust, and the unwavering belief that together we could create our own masterpiece. As the days of summer stretched lazily into early autumn, Emily and I found ourselves settling into a comfortable rhythm of shared routines and cherished moments. Our journey of reconciliation had unfolded like the changing seasons, gradual, nuanced, and filled with the promise of new beginnings. One crisp Saturday morning, we decided to escape the city's hustle and bustle by venturing into the nearby countryside. Armed with a picnic basket and a sense of adventure, we drove along winding country roads flanked by golden fields and rolling hills adorned with the vibrant hues of autumn foliage. Our destination was a secluded spot nestled beside a tranquil lake, a place of serene beauty where time seemed to slow and the cares of the world melted away. We spread out a blanket beneath the shade of a towering oak tree, the rustling of leaves and the gentle lapping of water against the shore creating a symphony of peace. "This place is perfect," Emily remarked with a contented sigh as she settled onto the blanket beside me, her gaze sweeping across the idyllic landscape. I nodded in agreement, a smile playing on my lips as I unpacked our picnic feast. It's moments like these that remind me how far we've come, I said softly, my heart swelling with gratitude for the chance to create new memories together. Emily reached for my hand, her touch a reassuring anchor amidst the beauty of nature unfolding around us. I never thought we'd find ourselves here, she admitted, her voice tinged with awe as she glanced around at the tranquil surroundings. Neither did I replied honestly, a sense of wonder mingling with the peace that settled over us like a warm embrace. But I'm grateful for every moment we share. We spent the afternoon immersed in laughter and quiet conversation, savoring the simple pleasures of good food, the beauty of nature, and the effortless companionship that had become the foundation of our renewed relationship. As the sun began its descent towards the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, we leaned back against the tree trunk, basking in the warmth of a love rekindled and strengthened by the trials of the past. I've been thinking about what comes next for us, Emily confessed softly, her eyes fixed on the fading light dancing across the water's surface. I turned to her, heart skipping a beat at the depth of her words. What do you see? I asked gently, eager yet cautious about the future unfolding before us. She met my gaze with unwavering sincerity, her smile radiant in the twilight's glow. I see a future filled with possibilities, Emily replied earnestly, her voice filled with a quiet determination. A future where we continue to grow together, where we build a life based on love, trust, and shared dreams. Her words echoed the hopes that had blossomed within my own heart, a vision of a future shaped by forgiveness and resilience, where every challenge became an opportunity to strengthen our bond. I want that too, I admitted softly, a surge of emotion welling within me at the prospect of a future defined by unwavering commitment and unwavering love. As we watched the last rays of sunlight fade into dusk, I knew that our journey was far from over. Together, Emily and I had navigated the depths of heartache and emerged on the other side, stronger and more determined than ever to embrace the beauty of second chances and the boundless possibilities of a love rekindled. Hand in hand, we walked back to the car, hearts full and spirits light as we embarked on the journey home, a journey that symbolized not only the physical return, but also the emotional and spiritual homecoming to each other's hearts. In that quiet moment of shared understanding and unwavering hope, I knew with certainty that our story was far from finished. It was a story of redemption, of forgiveness, and of the enduring power of love to heal even the deepest wounds of the past. And as we drove into the fading twilight, the stars overhead twinkling in silent approval, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the gift of Emily's love and the promise of a future filled with endless possibilities.